Part 44.06, Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke, the silence of the heavens, and the inheritance of the dispossessed. As-salamu Alaykum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. In our previous session, we traveled through the night journey with Musa alayhis salam and witnessed the sea at rest, that divine trap that turned the waters of life into a grave for the arrogant. We stood amidst the abandoned gardens, reflecting on the transience of wealth. Today, we continue this chilling archaeological survey of the fallen. We are exploring verses 26 through 30. In this passage, we look at the noble stations and cornfields that were once the pride of Egypt. We will analyze the concept of divine inheritance, how Allah transfers the world from the hands of the tyrants to the hands of another people. Most importantly, we will confront one of the most haunting verses in the entire Quran, and the heavens and the earth did not weep for them. Finally, we will reflect on the saving of the children of Israel from the humiliating torment. Welcome back to the Surah Ad-Dukhan Masterclass. In this session, we will examine the geography of lost status, analyzing the cornfields and the Makaman Kareem, noble stations, that were left behind. We will explore the cosmology of grief, reflecting on why the universe remains indifferent to the destruction of the arrogant. We will deconstruct the theology of transfer in verse 28. Thus, it was, and we caused another people to inherit them. Finally, we will reflect on the dignity of the oppressed, exploring the Sufi essence of how Allah delivers the weak from the degrading torment of the pharaoh of the ego. This is a journey from materialistic pride to spiritual permanence. Verse 26, the lost cornfields. Kanzalaman, Quran. Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke. Chapter 44, verse 26. And cornfields and noble stations. Wazuruin wa Makaman Kareem. And cornfields/crops and noble/honorable stations. Allah continues the list of what was abandoned by the drowned elite. The word zuru, crops/cornfields, represents the economic backbone of Egypt, the source of their food, trade, and survival. The Makaman Kareem, noble stations, refers to their palaces, their seats of government, and their places of high status. In this Sufi essence, we notice a linguistic irony here. Earlier, Musa alayhis salam was called a Rasulun Kareem, noble messenger. Now, the Quran mentions their Makaman Kareem, noble stations. The difference is that the nobility of Musa alayhis salam was internal and eternal, while their noble stations were external and temporary. When the person is not Kareem in their heart, their Kareem station becomes a hollow shell that they must eventually leave behind. Verse 27, the luxury of the negligent. Kanzalaman, Quran. Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke. Chapter 44, verse 27. And comfort and abundance in which they used to take delight. Wanamatan kanu fiha Fakihin. And a bounty/blessing in which they were taking delight/rejoicing. This verse targets the psychology of luxury. The word namat refers to the ease, the comfort, and the luxury that defined the life of the Egyptian elite. The word Fakihin, those who rejoice/take delight, suggests a state of heedless enjoyment, the play that we discussed in verse 9. In the Sufi essence, this is the trap of the temporary blessing. They were so busy rejoicing in the gift that they forgot the giver. When the heart is fakih, delighted only by the zukhruf, ornaments, it becomes blind to the coming smoke. Their delight was a bubble that the great seizure burst in a single moment. Verse 28, the transfer of inheritance. Kanzalaman, Quran. Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke. Chapter 44, verse 28. Thus it was, and we caused another people to inherit them. Kadhalika wa rathnaha kaman akran. Thus it was, and we caused another people to inherit them. This is the divine law of succession. The word arathnaha, we made them inherit, implies that ownership is alone. The gardens, springs, and cornfields did not disappear. They simply changed hands. Allah took the zukhruf from those who rose up against him and gave it to another people. In the Sufi essence, this is a warning about spiritual eviction. If we do not act as trustworthy servants in the gardens Allah has given us, He will bring another people who will value the blessing more than the ornaments. The world is a baton in a relay race of trials. Verse 29. The indifference of the cosmos. As-salamu Quran. Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke. Chapter 44, verse 29. So the heaven and the earth did not weep for them, nor were they given respite. Fama bakad, alayhim isamayu wal ardu wa makanu munzarin. And the heaven and the earth did not weep for them, nor were they given any respite. This is perhaps the most spiritually piercing verse in this surah. The heaven and earth are living witnesses. When a believer dies, the places of prostration on earth and the portals of deeds in heaven weep for the loss of a light. But for Pharaoh and his army, there was absolute silence. In the Sufi Essence, this is universal rejection. They had lived against Allah, so the entire creation, which exists to glorify Allah, felt no sorrow at their departure. Their death was a cleaning of the earth, not a loss. They were given no munzarin, respite/delay, because the short respite of verse 15 had already been wasted. Verse 30. The salvation from humiliation. As-salamu Quran. Surah Ad-Dukhan, the smoke. Chapter 44, verse 30. And indeed, we saved the children of Israel from the humiliating torment. Walakad najayna bani Israila min al-adhabil mu'in. And certainly, we saved the children of Israel from the humiliating/abasing torment. Allah concludes this movement by highlighting the deliverance of the oppressed. The torment of Pharaoh was mu'in, humiliating/abasing. It wasn't just physical labor, it was the crushing of their human dignity. In this Sufi essence, we learn that Allah is the defender of dignity. He saves, najayna, those who were considered nothing by the noble stations. This verse provides hope to every servant who feels suffocated by the smoke of a modern pharaoh. The seizure of the tyrant is simultaneously the salvation of the believer, extending the philosophical excavation, the cosmology of grief. In this sixth movement of Surah Ad-Dukhan, we encounter the anatomy of cosmic rejection. Verse 29's declaration that the heaven and the earth did not weep for them is a profound study in relationship with reality. In Sufi thought, the entire universe is dhikr, remembering Allah. Every atom is in a state of tasbih, glorification. When a human being aligns their heart with this universal symphony, they become a beloved part of the cosmos. When they die, the earth misses their forehead, and the sky misses their prayers. But Pharaoh and his army were spiritual noise. They were dissonance in the divine order. Their destruction was a correction of the atmosphere. The silence of the heavens is the ultimate proof that noble stations, Makam and Kareem, mean nothing if they are disconnected from the Lord of the heavens. Verse 26 and 27 deconstruct the illusion of the economic identity. Pharaoh's power was built on Zuru, cornfields, and Namat, luxury. They identified themselves by what they owned and how they rejoiced, Fakihin. In this Sufi essence, we call this the falsified self. If your sense of nobility depends on your station, Makam, then when the station is taken, you are destroyed. Musa alayhi salam was Kareem, even in the desert, even in exile, even in the night journey. His nobility was station independent. The Quran is teaching us to build a Makam, station, in the prostration rather than in the palace. The cornfields will be inherited by another people, but your Kareem, character is your only permanent property. The inheritance mentioned in verse 28, Arathnaha, is the divine law of displacement. In the play of doubt, people think they are the founders and permanent owners of their empires. Allah uses the word inherit to remind us that we are all just passing through. The another people, common Akharin, who inherited Egypt were the very ones Pharaoh tried to crush. This is the reversal of the social pyramid. Allah takes the zukhruf from the high and mighty and gives it to the weak and humble. This teaches us spiritual humility. Do not look at your gardens and springs as a sign of your superiority. Look at them as trusts, amana, that can be transferred by a single divine decree. The humiliating torment, adhabil in verse 30 targets the metaphysics of dignity. Pharaoh's goal was not just to use the children of Israel, but to humiliate them, to make them forget they were servants of Allah. The smoke of tyranny always seeks to abase the human spirit. When Allah says He saved them, He is saying He restored their honor. In Sufi thought, the greatest salvation is to be saved from the humiliation of worshiping anyone other than Allah. To be a slave to a pharaoh is mu'in, abasing. To be a slave to Allah is kareem, noble. The great seizure of the tyrant is the great coronation of the believer. Reflect on the word fakihin, rejoicing/taking delight. It comes from the same root as fakiha, fruit. They were consuming the fruits of the world without thanking the root. This is the vegetative state of the ego. It eats, it rejoices, and it ignores the smoke on the horizon. The Sufi essence of joy is shukr, gratitude. A joy that does not lead to gratitude is a toxic delight that numbs the soul. The cornfields of Egypt were lush, but the hearts of the owners were barren. When the great seizure arrived, the barren hearts were drowned, and the lush fields were given to those who knew how to breathe in the blessed night. This silence of the respite, in verse 29, Makanu Munzarin, is the closing of the gate. We often ask for more time, but Allah shows that Pharaoh had centuries of respite. He had the clear messenger, the manifest miracles, and the short respite of the smoke. When the great seizure finally strikes, time ends. There is no more delay. This is a call to urgency, Muzariah. We must not be of those who wait for the water to be at our throats to seek respite. We must seek the gardens of the hereafter while our cornfields of the world are still green. Furthermore, the inheritance of another people reminds us of the cycle of accountability. Every generation inherits the gardens of the previous one. We are currently living in the gardens of those who came before us. Are we rejoicing like the Fakihin of Egypt, or are we serving like the Ibad of Musa alayhis salam? The Quran uses the history of Pharaoh to analyze our current modernity. Our noble stations, corporate towers, high status, political power, are vulnerable to the same silence of the heavens if they are used to rise up against Allah. The saving of the children of Israel is the proof of divine providence. They were the weakened ones, Mustadafan. In the smoke of the world, it seems that the army always wins. But Surah Ad-Dukhan reverses the narrative. The army is drowned, and the slaves are saved. This is the sovereignty of the Lord of the forefathers. He is the one who manages the transfer of power. If you are with Allah, no humiliating torment can last forever. If you are against Allah, no noble station can save you from the great seizure. Finally, the Manifest Book invites us to be the people who make the heavens weep. How? By being the light in the blessed night. By being Kareem in our character so that the earth loves our footsteps and the sky loves our ascending deeds. When a friend of Allah, Wali, leaves this world, the gardens and springs do not feel abandoned. They feel bereaved. Let us use our short respite to build a relationship with the universe where our absence is felt, rather than a relationship where our destruction is an indifferent silence. Move from the luxury of the negligent to the dignity of the delivered. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. We have witnessed the silence of the heavens and the transfer of worldly power.